Welcome to another episode of the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast. This podcast was designed to let you know that you aren't the only one that took forever to get it together. So the rabbit hole that you have stumbled down will hopefully help you understand that just when you think it's over, it's only the beginning. Just because you were dealt a bad hand doesn't mean you have to keep it. Welcome to the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast.
All right, and greetings and salutations. Man, happy Monday. This is the beginning of the week. This is another episode of the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast. It is early, so anytime, I think when I did the last episode, it was really, really low when I tried to play it back, and it was like I know I talk low because I record these while my family is sleeping. So that's why I be whispering. I be on the Barry White for real. You like it? Yeah. All right, so welcome to another episode of the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast. I'm your man, the Guru, Terry. We're going to get into episode 14 here in a little bit. Before we get into that, I want to say happy belated Easter, I guess, right? I hope you guys had a wonderful Easter. My family and I didn't really do anything for Easter. I think my wife's a little bit upset about that because we didn't do anything, but, you know, we're going to do some more traditional stuff. I never really been big on tradition when I was coming up, you know, so I struggle in that area. So hopefully, you know, we have other holidays coming up, you know, and hopefully I can be more festive and work on it. Okay, so we're going to get into episode 14. So if you listen to episode 13, you know, where I dropped it off at, I think it was a pretty good point. A good stopping point in episode 13. And I was living in a hotel. I got kicked out of one or two hotels because I couldn't pay the rent. And I still don't understand to this day how I was able to do that. How I was able to get kicked out of a hotel when I was gainfully employed. I never could understand that. I didn't do dope. I didn't drink. You know, I just don't understand. I just don't. But anywho, so as I was telling you guys in episode 13, I was offered to go live with my daughter's baby's daddy. Okay, now that situation that situation had its own. It had its own. You know, it was nasty. I should have done. You know, when she asked me the first time to go live with him, just to get out of the hotel, I told her no emphatically because I just didn't, because personally I didn't like him, right? And then to appease my daughter to be at this time I had my first granddaughter, and it was like, should I, shouldn't I? You know, I want to be around my granddaughter. I don't want to be in this hotel room, but I don't like this dude. So I was just faced with, oh my God. I see, and that's the point of this whole podcast. It's like, don't let it be too late to where, you know, you have to make a decision. You know, you've been through so much stupid stuff and you've done so much stupid stuff, and you look back and you go, man, now I'm faced with it. Now I have to. It's at this part of it, this is when you hear the proverbial either shit or get out the pot, right? That's kind of the premise I was in. I'm either going to shit or I'm going to get out the pot. I got to make a decision here, right? So I was like, you know what? Okay, my daughter was begging me because she wanted me out of the hotel, and I get it, you know. So I go and I go stay with him. Now, like I said, this was a whole different dynamic, because at this point, you talking about the level of failure I felt. Yeah, that was pretty bad. I moved in with him. I know he didn't like me. You know what I'm saying? So right there, it was already strange. It was already strained because we didn't like each other. So I moved in, and he had a spare bedroom. I go, and he gets me an air mattress. So I'm sleeping. Just imagine the depths of this. I was sleeping. First of all, I was living with my baby daddy. I mean, my girlfriend's and my daughter's baby's daddy, and I am sleeping in his spare bedroom, and I am sleeping on an air mattress. Imagine that, just for a second. I mean, I know, but imagine that the level of, oh my God, how did I get here? That came over me. So I go stay with him, and he wanted his, we had talked about it, and we, here are the rules. Here are the rules. I want you to understand the rules, and the rent has to be paid on this day. Right? So I go stay with him, and I'm still working. And it was just, I can't even describe to you how humiliating that part of my life was. Trying to date somebody with sleep on the air mattress. It's goofy. I'm catching the bus to work. The whole night, it was just goofy. So let's fast forward to the first story. Okay, in this, the first story was I went to work. The first time that the rent was due, I go to work. I get home, catch the bus. And somehow my check was short because I missed 4 or 5 hours or something like that. Something goofy, but it left my check short by I think it was $300, and I was supposed to pay rent, right? So I'm like, I call my daughter. I say, hey, I'm going to be short, and she was like, Dad, this is the first week. I'm like, well, it is what it is. I can't borrow $400 from somebody or $300 from somebody. So I go home, and I remember her telling me on the phone. She was like, "Well, all right, Dad, you got to deal with the consequences. I mean, no backup for her pops or nothing. You got to deal with the consequences." So I get off the bus and I walk home, and he's there with his brother. It's his brother and his best friend. Now they on the patio, playing with guns and going on. They mean literally playing with guns. And so I come home, I take him out in the patio. I say, "Hey man, my check's short. I can't, He's like, "Oh yeah." And so he calls his brother on the patio, and they talking to him. He was like, "Listen, man, we're not going to start this," And they started playing with the guns, and Mock pulling the thing back on the gun and everything. No, we're not gonna play this game. We're gonna pay my rent. Da, 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 da. And so from the get go, it was just strained, right? Now there was another dynamic to the situation. He was dating my daughter, but he was also cheating on her. I mean, just ruthless. He didn't care. He was cheating on her. I think she knew it. Now, mind you, when I was staying with him, she didn't stay there. She would come up and visit and stay extended periods, but she didn't live there, right? But he would bring girls in the house. We would all hang out together, and I just like, what? I'm not gonna, dude. Like, you're dating my daughter. What's going on here? You know what I'm saying? But it had gotten so bad, so low in the dumps that I felt like I couldn't even say anything to him because he put a roof over my head when I didn't have one. So there's a level of loyalty that I felt, but at the same time, I'm still my baby's father. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to cut this dude's throat in his sleep. That's what it was, right? So he would bring these girls by, and I would just go when I was there. When he had company or whatever, I was never out in the common area with him. I would stay in the room and play on my phone, listen to some music or whatever. I never did anything. And so, but on top of that, my daughter used to come over, and he was abusive. He was abusive, and he would hit her, and he just did. It was crazy. And there was a level of selfishness that I had, right? I can't even begin, right? I mean, so I remember one instance, one story. She came over, and we had got some weather. It was some ice, snow, whatever. We got some weather in North Carolina, which is very seldom. So it's big when you get it, right? So we get this weather. She comes over, and they get into this huge knockdown, drag out fight. Now, I'm in the room. I'm in my room on my air mattress with headphones on because I knew they were fighting, but I didn't want to jump in the middle of it, right? Because she was grown. She made her own decisions. When she decided to be with the dude, as many times as I told her, you can't. This dude crazy. You should do better for yourself, whatever. And I wish I had talked to her, but I was like, in that time of my life, I felt, I mean, who am I to give anybody advice on anything? I'm sitting or laying on an air mattress at my daughter's baby's daddy's house. I didn't even have my own shit. Like, how am I? Who? Me? So I was faced with, like, what do I say? What do I do, if anything? Because if I jump in the middle of this situation, I'm going to be homeless again, right? Because it was just it was just so stupid. I mean, the stuff that was going on. And there were many a times during that situation to where I wanted to just, like I said before, cut this dude's throat and be done with it. But I was like, no, I can't do that. And then I want to jump in the middle of it because this man could just, the same way he let me in here, he put me out of here. You know what I mean? So it's like, I want to not, jump in the middle. I figured my daughter would handle it, And that's another thing, another situation, another reason why or how I know I failed my daughter. I want y'all to be honest. I want y'all to understand this, and I want you to listen to it real nice now. There were many instances to where I failed my daughter. This was one of them because I didn't have her back. But remember when I said in the beginning, and a little while ago, I said there was a level of selfishness, right? I did not have her back because she didn't have mine, which makes no viable sense. You know what I'm saying? I'm still her father. I still should have popped him in the chest for what he did to my daughter and my granddaughter. There was another instance to where one weekend I was off work and I had my granddaughter. I think they went out on a date or something. I can't remember exactly now. But I was watching my granddaughter, and I remember him coming to the house and snatching her, from me. He was like, I'm going to take her home to her mama. All right, cool, So he leaves with my granddaughter. He comes back, maybe an hour later and says, hey, you need to go with me to Waysboro, my hometown. You need to go with me. At the time we lived in Charlotte. And I'm like, why did he go with you for? I didn't want to deal with him. I didn't want to hang around him. I just didn't want no parts, So we get in the car. I mean, because I felt like I was behind the 8 ball. I had no choice, And I get in the car. We go down there, and something had happened with the drop off between him and my daughter. The cops were involved, so he was like, "Hey, when we get down here, you tell the cops I said this or I did this." He wanted me to lie for him to the cops. And I'm like, dude, I'm not going to do that. You know what I'm saying? That's, and so I get there. Now, my baby's mama and my daughter and her mother, her grandmother, are there. They are like dogging me because I sided with him. And I'm like, I ain't saying nothing. you know. But they said that I sided with him because I was simply there with him, you know. And so again, another situation to where I failed my daughter. We'll get into that in a later podcast. But it was that was just a daunting situation. I didn't want to be a part of it anyway. And then you made my people turn their back on me because of some stuff you did. They got into that. So again, I think I skipped a part where she came up one weekend for during a storm, and the one thing I hated with my daughter and my daughter and her baby daddy, they were fine as long as they weren't drinking. Once they started drinking, it changed the game. It changed the game. But it's like with any other, alcoholic or a person who uses alcohol to soothe problems. It's the same thing. She get to drinking. She got belligerent. She got disrespectful, and so did he. They were just really bad at it. And I would always tell them when they get to drinking. I'm not a big drinker, but I used to tell them, you guys should not drink. You guys shouldn't do that, because when my daughter is an emotional drunk, and so if she gets to drinking, she gets emotional. She starts spilling all her guts and telling you how she really feels about stuff, and and sometimes people do that because that's what it takes, right? So they got to drinking one night. I mean, they were drinking. I'm not sure what they were drinking. I can't remember what they were drinking, but they got really, 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 really bad. And so next thing I know, later on that night, I hear the walls just boom, 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 boom. I mean, it's just, And so my daughter comes into the room. She comes running in the room. She's like, Dad, come in. We're fighting, and da 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 da. He broke my chain, and da 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 da. I mean, it was a whole thing. It was just really, really bad. I said, well, honey. I said, well, what are you doing? You come in here with me. Lock the door, whatever. And it was just a sticky situation, and I did not know, honestly, how to handle it. I'm in this man's house. I'm sleeping on his floor. He giving me a roof. But at the same time, this dude tapping on my daughter's head. And there was nothing that I could do. At least I thought there was nothing I could do. But what was tough, though, is my daughter kept going back. She would be done with him. She'd go back. They get into a fight. She'll leave. She'll go back. And that was annoying. But that's neither here nor there. I think I told her a lot of times, you need to press charges, put him in jail, lock him up, da 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 da. Never did it. Never, not once. I remember her getting a restraining order once on him, but she violated that by just coming back around, But it was just that part of my life was just the weirdest and the loneliest. And I mean, there's a lot of lonely parts of my life, but that one was pretty up there, as far as the because not knowing how to handle her, not knowing how to handle the situation, not knowing a lot of anything, and I mishandled it, and I think that I don't think she ever recovered from it. Hell, I don't think I've ever recovered from it, and that's the reason why. And that's the reason why I'm in the middle of therapy right now. I don't know if I've ever handled it. I don't even know if I ever spoke about it, other than to my wife when we was dating, my current wife. Other than to her and maybe one other soul. But I don't know. And I blame myself for a lot of stuff that happened with her. I blame myself for what happened with me, But of course, living with him was short-lived. It did not last long. So I made up my mind to vacate the premises. exited the coordinates and all that jazz. So I left. One day I came home. I got paid. I had a pretty good paycheck. I was like, okay, I'm going to give him the rest of his rent, pay me off for the month, and I'm gonna give him a couple $100 for groceries because I ate. I did eat when I was there, and I'm out. And I went to go live. I went to go live in one more hotel, and that was that. And I just don't. I feel telling that story again. It's like, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? Like, why would I do that? But I'm curious. I'm just curious to see how many folk listen to this. Is going to listen to this episode of this podcast. I want you guys to tell me this. If you were me, and you were in a situation to where you were living with your daughter's baby's daddy, and he was fighting her or beating her up, what would you have done? What would you have done? That's the question. So I want you guys, whoever, if you listen to this, if you got this far in the podcast and you caught that question, I want you to email me at knuckleheadchroniclespodcast@gmail.com. Yeah, knuckleheadchroniclespodcast@gmail.com. I want you to email me. Give me your answer. What would you say? What would you do if it was you were me, in a situation you were faced with, was the same one I was faced with? What would you do? So I'm going to end it right there. All right. So listen, because the next chapter is pretty good as well. This is where I meet I start dating my best friend at this point. The next chapter, but we'll get into that. All right. Going forward now, remember, you guys, the panel edition of the Knucklehead Chronicles goes live on May 1st of this year on BS3 TV network on Roku. So make sure that you download the Roku app. If you do not have Roku and you're not willing to go buy one, understood. Okay, you still can watch it on YouTube. Follow BS3 TV network, or you can follow the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast YouTube page. Or if you don't want to watch us on video, you can always listen to us on Podbean Live. So here are the instructions with Podbean. You have to download the Podbean app, create an account, follow the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast, and then you'll be able to see or hear us go live. You'll be able to comment and such in a live form. All right? But in the meantime, between time, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for supporting. I really appreciate y'all. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And until the next episode, you have a great one.
Thank you for listening. I hope I didn't fry your brain too bad. Come back through and give me another chance. You can listen on all platforms and visit us at knuckleheadchroniclespodcast.podbean.com. Until next time, in the words of the incomparable Jerry Springer, take care of yourself and each other.